My goal in life is to be pathologically helpful.
Welcome to The Pitch Room, the show where we skip the highlight reel and get the real story of how things actually get built. I'm Max Bratter, and I'm joined by Tony Cordova here at Rice University's Lilie Lab. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, great to be here. Great to be here. Thanks for coming by and swinging by Houston, Texas. You know, a little hot, a little balmy, a little sweaty, but great to be here. So.
Okay, Tony, so this is kind of what we do on the podcast, The Pitch Room. When we start, we don't want to start with the hard question. No one wants to start with the hard question, so we're going to start with the easy question.
All right.
How do you take your coffee?
I don't. I do not drink coffee at all. I am what I would like to call naturally caffeinated. My energy levels are always super high. That being said, my kryptonite, my vice, very frequently you'll see me in hand with a white monster first thing in the morning. It is a recurring theme and a recurring joke around the office. It is the number one energy stimulant that I'll ever have, but I try to keep it to a minimum. So.
Okay, that's a fair take. I'm gonna have to personally disagree. Viewers
okay.
know I'm an almond milk iced latte from Starbucks, kind of guy, but very much respectable. And are you the kind of person who's gonna be working on something at 2 a.m. or at midnight? Like, are you the night owl or morning?
No. I've got an internal body clock that is on like pure military time. I wake up at 6 a.m. I go to sleep at midnight, and I'm awake and asleep at those times pretty much every day. It's crazy how regimented my internal circadian rhythm is at this point.
Very impressive. It's hard. I try to, do my work at normal times, but you know how it goes. Sometimes you're just working on something and you don't want to stop. Gotta keep going.
Every now and then I'll catch myself taking a couple more Z's than usual, or I'll be, staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning, but I gotta have something that's really, exciting me that day.
That's fair. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get to Rice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, full-fledged intro. My name is Dr. Tony Cordova. My students call me Tony, Dr. T, Doc, whatever, flavor you decide to choose. I joined Rice University about a year ago now, actually, which is pretty insane to think about.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I had a bit of a long journey to get here. The most confusing part for most people tends to be, I have a PhD, which is why they call me Doc. And weirder is that my PhD is in biochemistry. So often the first question is, how on earth did you get involved in entrepreneurship, right? So I got to take us back to 2016. I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed senior in high school. I had just accepted a very generous financial aid offer to go to Texas A&M in College Station, just probably an hour or so up the road from Houston. So learned some interesting things while I was at Texas A&M. I wanted to originally, when I started school, be a biomedical engineer and then go into med school. Those plans all actually blew up very quickly before I even set foot on campus. Changed my major, became a biomedical sciences major, and still was thinking pre-med. So one of the core things you have to do in the kind of pre-medicine track is get some research. Getting research at A&M was really hard. Maybe because I wasn't looking in the right places, or maybe because primarily research was allotted for a lot of the honor students there when I was there. And I was not an honor student, not because I wasn't qualified to be, but because I simply didn't want to be. And so I had to get a little creative. I had to think outside the box. I have a mentor of mine who I credit with a lot of my success. His name is Dr. Carmichael Roberts. He is a good family friend of mine and runs several venture firms of his own. His dream, in part, was for me to work for him one day. And so he, in one of his advice-giving sessions, said, let me give you an idea. And he invited me to work at a startup that he was supporting based out of Chicago on the south side, about a stone's throw away from the White Sox stadium. The unique part of this role was that I was going to get to try things from two different angles. I could try things as a scientist if I really wanted to be pre-med or do something of that nature. But he also wanted me to work as a business development intern so I could see what it was like to run a company and be on the business salesy side of things. And I credit that experience with my introduction to startups, because I was working at this company which was effectively a university spinout of a startup, so very similar to what I'm doing now. And allowed me to kind of discover what I liked and did not like. Needless to say, very shortly after, I threw out the idea of being a doctor in the traditional sense of the term as a physician, and pivoted entirely to thinking that I wanted to do business development in the life sciences. Fast forward a few years, I'd been working every summer in Chicago, loved the experience. Got to my last year of college, 2020. COVID happens. On top of that, the company is potentially going through an acquisition. So I have to make a pretty hard judgment call of, do I gambit during this really uncertain time going to Chicago to a company that may or may not exist in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months time? Or do I do the other thing, which on the side I had applied to PhD programs? And the reason why was because both my dad, a very successful businessman in his own right, and Carmichael both had PhDs and MBAs and have been very, very successful as CEOs, building their own companies, building their own ventures. And I decided 5 years of job security as a PhD was the right route. So fun little fact for people that do not know this, STEM PhDs are actually paid in the United States. So you get a stipend relatively around a modest teacher salary just to be in school and research and study. So those 5 years of job security sounded like the right option at the time for me, and they ended up being the right option. During my PhD, I actually got exposure to startups in full. I already knew that I liked this space, and I ended up falling into some courses like the John Brumley Texas Venture Labs at the University of Texas, which is where I did my PhD, that allowed me to act as a consultant on several different startups over the course of a year, which is really cool. On top of that, I found Nucleate, which is the organization I actually credit with me landing at Rice. It was a graduate student-focused, graduate student-led biotechnology and medical technology accelerator program where we help students commercialize the technology they're working on in the lab. So all of this to say, I had a very unique nonlinear journey from engineer to physician, plan to business development and life sciences to then working a ton in startups before I graduated with my PhD now well over a year ago. That time in Nucleate exposed me to some folks here at Rice, including Kyle Judah, who's our executive director here at Lilie, and is what led to me actually getting the job here, which is really cool. So quite a unique zigzag of an experience to end up in startups. But now here at Lilie, I help manage programs that directly support student innovation and entrepreneurship across a variety of different industries, basically taking the best of everything that I learned over the last now 10 years and parlayed it into what is now my kind of career in startup development. So.
Well, that's a great story. Like you said, very nonlinear,
Yes.
But I think that's kind of what makes it so interesting, right? Like you probably were exposed to things that students who just go straight into business or straight into engineering are never going to really be exposed to in their time in college or even high school, because you didn't know what was coming next, right?
Absolutely.
Things kept changing. But I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned Nucleate, which was in my notes here. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that startup did?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nucleate is like the startup for startups is the way I will call it. It was started as a spin-out of the Harvard Biotechnology Club, I believe in 2019 was when that started. They started kind of expanding this concept of taking the knowledge and lessons that were being built through tech transfer in Boston and the Cambridge area and applying them to other hubs across the US and now globally. So I was a part of helping found and build up the Austin chapter of Nucleate, which is a smaller part of Nucleate Texas, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. All 4 cities have large-scale chapters that support a handful to half a dozen startups per year coming out of the university ecosystem.
And that could be any university.
Yeah, so we had folks from the University of Texas, from Texas A&M, UT Dallas, Southwestern. Everywhere you can think of across Texas, we had some student that wanted to engage in startups and innovation and entrepreneurship, and not only people that wanted to volunteer to support those companies, but actual companies. There wasn't a lot of groundwork at the time at some of these institutions to support life sciences innovation. And so Nucleate kind of went around the U.S. filling that gap. What Texas was supremely successful at was leveraging the desire that all of these cities had to see that growth. Here in Texas, traditionally, you think of oil and gas as one of the major industries. Dallas, you think a lot about finance. Austin, you think a lot about tech, right? what you don't realize is that there's a pretty large underlayer of biotechnology and life sciences in the Texas ecosystem. The majority of great bioscience pharma companies come from technologies from institutional or academic labs that are eventually acquired, turned into full-fledged, medicines or medical devices over their time. So we were that first kind of footstep or first layer for students, principal investigators or PIs, those bosses that are in charge of labs, and others to learn the basic skills of being a founder. I call it like business development founder 101, right? Most people know scientists to be kind of nerdy, kind of awkward, and that archetype is very true. I do not necessarily fall into that archetype, as many people have told me. But that was the fun part of the role, was getting students excited about, hey, this is something real. This could be a real company. I just don't know how to do that. Great, let us teach you. Let us find the subject matter experts, the mentors, the experts in the ecosystem that want to see growth in this bioeconomy, and pair them with you so you can learn, grow, and build out a successful company. We've had several folks from Nucleate Texas go on and be, incredibly successful in their own right. Special shout out to Valorum Therapeutics. They were a YC company a couple years ago. One of my good friends, Manuel Harb, who's a Rice alumni and a good friend of Kyle Judah as well. He is now the CEO of a company called Music Bio, which is using ultrasound-guided bubble technology to deliver therapeutics.
Whoa.
They have, raised a successful amount of money so far and are continuing to build the company. So we're seeing success stories every day in Texas. Across the state, and Nucleate was a small part of that. I was very thankful to be a part of it, both as the managing director for Nucleate Austin and then the managing director of all of Nucleate Texas now about 2 years ago before I graduated. So I was really overseeing the whole enchilada, which is about 22 different startups across Texas that year.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. It's such a cool opportunity to be able to work with so many different students who are all doing something kind of similar but completely different from each other.
Absolutely.
So I think that's incredible. Well, you mentioned that Texas is having all these wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
What, and we'll talk a little more about why Rice later, but why do you think Texas has become, and Houston, such a hub for technology and innovation in the past few years? I think normally you'd think of California, maybe New England, maybe Florida, depending on the field. Yeah. But Texas traditionally hasn't been thrown in that mix. What do you think changed?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. The three big cities in Texas, Dallas, Houston, and Austin, are now consistently ranking in the top 10 in multiple economy verticals, whether it be tech, bio, life sciences, defense technology, software, et cetera. We're now ranking in the top 10 for money coming in the door for investment. So that has changed. The money is clearly coming to Texas. The other, I think, has been a migration of talent. A lot of people are relocating to Texas. The Texas, large major metro areas are some of the largest growth centers in the U.S. as well right now. I mean, when I moved to Austin, it was probably a greater metro of maybe 750,000 to 1 million people. That has almost doubled to close to tripled in size over the last 16 years now, 17 years. So people are coming, talent are coming to the state, and the money is flowing in. So I think those things over the last decade and a half have clearly changed the trajectory of the state as it pertains to startups. The money has always been here. It's just where the money is being directed to.
I found Rice and I found Lilie. Well, okay, I knew what Rice was, but I found Lilie because a couple months ago, at the beginning of my college journey, I was looking for colleges around the country that have cool STEM programs and entrepreneurship, because that's what I'm into, to go and take a tour over my spring break. And Rice was on that list constantly, so I flew out here and I cold emailed Kyle, and we connected, you Kyle and I and my mom, and it was really interesting to hear what you both had to say about basically exactly that. Texas has become so much more influential, especially in the tech space, but really in the startup space. Houston is such a lively kind of city that, again, like I said, people don't really think about Houston as a big tech hub, but really, like you said, with the oil and the energy specifically, but then med tech is right here. I mean, the Houston Medical District is one of the top 5 in the country, if not higher?
It's probably higher. I know by space, the Texas Medical Center is the largest medical center in North America, if my numbers are still correct, which is a pretty big achievement because everything is in fact bigger in Texas.
Well, we were driving in earlier today, and we passed downtown.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I thought downtown was right next to Rice, and then I realized this is all the medical center right here. The downtown is completely different, but you wouldn't know. The buildings are huge. Like, there's so much going on here. And all that to say, Rice is at the center of everything, and at the center of Rice is Lilie and is this lab. So what do you do here in this building?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do at Lilie specifically as the head of early stage ventures is I oversee programming that supports students at the earliest stage of building their actual startup. So the way I term it is anybody from the first day they set foot on campus as a freshman till the day they step off of campus as a PhD, an MBA, what have you. Lilie is here for you to support you in building your first venture, your 5 to 9 after your 9 to 5, so to speak, right? So how I do that comes across in several different ways. The first of which is through Launchpad, which is our in-academic year accelerator. From August to March every single year, I run effectively a do-it-at-your-own pace accelerator program for students. We equip them with curriculum. We find them mentors in the ecosystem, whether it's in Houston or across the U.S., to support a venture very specifically in their goals. For a lot of students, they're coming in for the first time what we would call solution first, which is a very common trap in entrepreneurship. You want to think problem first. So my goal is actually to help students for the first time rearrange their thought process and think about a couple of things. We've termed this now Tony's triangle. So you have the people, the customers, the problem, and then the product or your solution, right? People, product, problem. You want to be able to combine these three things, very similar to like a three-legged stool. All three things come together to let it stand on its own and provide you with opportunity. So my first meeting with students is getting them to articulate that in the best way they can. That allows me to level set, find out what the gaps are, and set them on their path of customer discovery, market segmentation, problem space identification for some of them because they've thought solution first, or the reverse. They have a problem and they're trying to apply a solution and they need to figure out what that solution should look like. In some form or fashion, I want them to walk away from Tony's triangle with some deliverables of what's the next thing I need to do to kind of fill this thing out, or how do I go and talk to the people to figure out if the rest of the triangle is correct. So that's one of the ways that I support students, and that's longitudinal. It's over the entire course of the academic year. We have rolling admissions. Last year we had about 120, 130 different ventures step through our door. Wow. That were in active development trying to build out their next thing. The other program that I help oversee primarily right now is our Innovation Fellows program. It is a 12-month longitudinal program for PhDs specifically. It's a fellowship where we buy PhDs out of their lab one day a week, and they come train with us, one day, usually Fridays, on commercialization, business development founder 101, very similar to Nucleate, like I talked about, and we equip them with the tools to navigate turning their research into an actual company. So there's kind of two forms of it. There's like the very agnostic, doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter what grade level type of program. And then there's the very targeted, very specific fellowship with very specific goals. Not that any is better than the other, they just serve different populations. And that has always been Lilie's goal, is to serve all of the populations here at Rice as well as humanly possible. The last thing that I've now suddenly started supporting, and we talked about this as you've kind of pursued your collegiate journey, is a high school program. This year we've actually launched Pathfinder, which is a 2-week immersive residential program for high school entrepreneurs or students that want to be high school entrepreneurs. We very much like to think of it as like your first foray into building a company, whether it's one you've already started or building out a brand new idea. We joke a lot that student founder is a bit of a misnomer. Forget the student part. It's all about being a founder, right? When you step over that threshold, you're entering into the world of entrepreneurship. Don't let student be your identifier. Let founder be your identifier, right? That's the important thing. And so we're excited to launch that program this year. It'll be another way to kind of create touch points with students as they begin to engage in entrepreneurship, whether it's here at Rice or somewhere else. Obviously, we'd love for it to be at Rice. There's a reason why we've been number one ranked for 7 years in a row in entrepreneurship for several programs. And we try to continue to embody that number one spirit every day. So
Okay, super cool. So it sounds like there's a lot of different programs for every student at Rice, right? You could be not a student at Rice, you could be in high school, or you can be all the way through the last week of your PhD program.
Absolutely.
So why do you think that a student who's interested in entrepreneurship should look at Rice instead of one of those other schools we mentioned in California, in wherever it may be?
Look, I mean, I think every school has their own special sauce, right? There's no wrong answer. Now, if I'm going to give you the why Rice, I think it's because of our special sauce. Exactly what you alluded to. We have programs and opportunities for entrepreneurs of all stripes. One of the really fascinating things that drew me to this job in the first place is that Rice actually has an entrepreneurship minor. We teach a suite of classes. We have some wonderful folks on the academic side. Dr. Hassan Panahi is one, and Sophie Randolph is another. They do an excellent job at teaching the curriculum behind entrepreneurship and how you really kind of pursue the goals of design and discovery and building your venture for the first time. So, if you want the structure of like a class, of a course, you have an entire minor built around exactly that to support you in your ambition that way. If you want to go be a pre-law student, a pre-med student, whatever, there's extracurricular, co-curricular programs like mine, like Launchpad, that you can pursue to support your endeavor, right? So whether you want full structure, you want a little bit of a loosey-goosey structure, right? What we try to do is create the maximal surface area for entrepreneurs of all stripes to pursue what they want, right? The rankings, I think, speak for themselves, obviously, for Rice, but the special sauce is what keeps both the rankings and what we do relevant, right? We are the special sauce. Everybody that operates at Lilie, whether they're on the academic side and teaching a class, even our adjunct or clinical faculty that teach, or the folks that run programs like myself, right? You heard a little bit about my entrepreneurship background. Everybody has either worked at a startup, built their own startup, operated a startup, sold a startup. Like, our staff is all entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. It's not just theory. It's tried and true practice from all of us. We've all been there. We've all done that. So we come at it from the angle of how can we best support you in that endeavor. I think the other thing that is not necessarily very apparent to folks is ownership, right, of their entrepreneurial venture. A lot of people think that, I'm working on it with an institution or with a program, I owe them something, whether it's equity or ownership or a piece of the pie. The beauty about Lilie is that we are an IP-free, equity-free environment. Every accelerator, every program is completely IP and equity-free. We don't take a dime or an ounce of your ownership to support you. It lets us be the unbiased arbiters of truth for these students who are looking for help for the first time as they embark on a very unique, very challenging sometimes journey of entrepreneurship. And I think that's another kind of element to the special sauce that makes Lilie very special.
Well, so when I came in March to tour the campus as a whole, but also Lilie, I think one thing that really stood out to me that was something that at least 10 students that I stopped on the sidewalks kind of agreed and was the first thing they would say is you can go up to any professor that you might have taken their class, you might be taking your class, you might never take their class, and ask them about doing research, and they're almost always going to say yes, and if they won't, they'll get you to someone who will. And I think that's so important, especially in technology, but also in entrepreneurship. I think Lilie is that, right? You don't have to go to a random professor. You don't have to worry about someone saying, no, you come here, you enroll in your minor or one of your programs, fellowships, and you can build things that you really never would have been able to do at a school that's so much bigger, that can't give you that individualized attention that Rice and Lilie can. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think there's a benefit to being a small private school, right? We have the benefit of being able to very specifically and in a way that we kind of call unreasonable hospitality, right? We want to serve students with unreasonable hospitality. We're a place that people can come to and we're going to say yes, right? The other thing, on my end, as somebody who runs a program that is really meant for everybody, truly my job allows me to do that by supporting Launchpad, by supporting Innovation Fellows, by supporting Pathfinder. It allows me to be as pathologically helpful as humanly possible to students that have an idea, a passion, a venture that they want to see come to fruition, right? And there's something beautiful in that, right? To see students excited about the thing that they're passionate about, right? Very clearly, with you, the podcast is a huge thing. And, I was gearing and ready to say yes as soon as you asked, because this is the kind of thing that we do for our students every single day. And it's not just our students, but the people that engage with Rice, want to be a part of the ecosystem that we're building here. It's really cool to be a part of something where the default is yes. So
yeah.
It's
incredible. And when we were talking a little bit earlier, you had mentioned that part of the reason it's so great that you're IP free is that you can be very honest, right? If something's not a good idea, there's no reason for you to not be very clear to the students about that. What do you think is the biggest thing that students try to do that's just wrong, that you constantly feel like you have to correct?
Not talking to customers. That is I would argue, the biggest landmine, so to speak, that students will step on is they dream up a problem, or they take a problem that may be anecdotal to them, and they dream up or create a solution without ever talking to somebody to ask, is this a problem that actually needs to be solved? Or two, is this a solution that somebody would even want, right? There's a lot of subtext in what we call customer development or customer discovery. You have to be willing to go out and talk to people, because ultimately, who's paying for the product? People.
Yeah.
And those people will be the market setters for you. So very frequently, we have to guide students, or I have to guide students towards speaking to customers. It's actually a core first assignment in Launchpad, is that you have to talk to at least 5 customers before proceeding with the next phase of the program. By the end of the program, most students have talked to somewhere on the order of 20 to 25 different customers, which isn't a lot. You should probably be talking about 10 to 100 times that amount of people. But it begins to frame your mind around whether or not the idea has legs or merit to it. Not every idea is the best idea since sliced bread, and that's okay. Not every idea is flashy or sexy. A lot of times the most basic, boring ideas or solutions that are out there are the ones that are the most profitable, or are the ones that, take off and succeed. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be willing to acknowledge, I don't know everything, come in the door knowing that, and be willing to learn, not only from the people that are trying to help guide you, but also learn from the people that you're talking to. Because I may have an assumption of my own, right? Of maybe this idea is not very good. But then they talk to customers, and the feedback that I get to read is, wow, okay, they actually really like this. Great. As a PhD, my goal is to question everything. Mm-hmm. That's my entire education.
That's what you've been trained to do.
Yeah, it's what you're trained to do as a PhD, is to question everything. And not only that, but question things a layer deeper than what the resolved answers may appear to be. And so I live in this constant state of asking questions, not because I doubt a student's venture or I doubt the idea, but my goal is to get to the next order of why or whys to help students along in their path. I liken it a lot to the annoying niece or nephew that you sit in the car and they ask you why the sky is blue, and you tell them, but then they say why again, and then you have to come up with another reason, and then they ask why a third time, right? And then it becomes like, oh, because I said so, right? My goal is to ask multiple levels of why constantly of the students, of the founders, to get them thinking about it too, right? If somebody asks you why the sky is blue, you have to think about it for a second, right? And then if you give them the answer, and there's, whatever scientific answer you give, they might ask why again, and there might be another layer to that, right? There's always another, question to be asked. And it's a really interesting kind of part of it, right? Entrepreneurship is almost like a science, right? You're testing hypotheses, you're coming to conclusions, and then you're adjusting over and over and over again to get to a result that you want.
So we're talking to someone on the podcast, and it'll be coming down the pipeline, but from a local robotics company here in Houston.
Very cool.
Who, when the company started, was the first employee that they hired, and he was the person who built the product, but also the only user for the first, little while. I'm trying not to give too much information, so you have to come back and watch that after.
Sure.
But he told me that essentially that's actually the greatest thing you could ever have, that closed loop. So whereas a lot of companies, you have to, let's say you have your idea exists, you got something cooking up. You then have to go, like you said, do research, go ask customers, is this something you need? Is it not? Is it easy enough for you to use? Is it way too easy? Does it not do what you need it to do? Give us some feedback and how we can make this better. But for him, he was the one giving the feedback to himself, right? He used it. He said, oh, this button is too far to the left. My finger can't click it easily. So let me just move it a couple pixels over. And he could just do that, right? So I think it's so exciting to have that closed loop, but in a completely different way, it's essential to not have it, right? That's a company that's going. They have their funding, they've been working, and they have customers all over the world, whatever it may be. But your students don't have that luxury. They're building it. They're at the very beginning or somewhere in the early middle section of this process, where I think that's kind of an essential part of it, right? You don't want something where you're the only one using it and then you're selling a service, right? But you want something where you need feedback because you need to fail.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm probably not the first person to say this, but you need to fail in order to get better at what you're doing. And so I think that doesn't mean this, the startup that they're working on should fail so they can make another one. Not at all. But I think, and I'm hoping you agree with me, if every single decision that the student or students make in their journey to becoming a successful company is the correct answer, then they're not going to end well, right? What do you think about that? What do you tell your students about that?
I think some people strike gold and they come up with a great idea and they find a right product market fit. They find a right problem solution match and they just go. And that happens, right? Now that's a small probability relative to the graveyard of startups that exist. I think failing fast and knowing when to pivot is important, and that is something critical we try to implore students to realize, right? Is it's okay to fail. The other thing that I'll kind of tweak even from what you said is needing to know whether the solution works for the customer. Frankly, I think what they need to spend more time on is less about showing somebody a product initially and getting feedback on that product. It's actually getting feedback on the problem. The more feedback you get on the problem, the more you can develop a solution that is tailored to fixing the problem. Usually product and solution feedback can come once you're piloting, once you have, initial customers, right? You're going to get that naturally as you continue along. But first you want to build a solution that actually kind of fits the problem before ever asking hey, is this something you would use? I try to, stray students away from asking that question of hey, you have a product, would you use this, right? Say I have a theoretical, AI is hot right now. Let's say I have a theoretical, vertical AI tool. The first thing I'm asking prospective customers is not, would you use this? My goal is to understand them and understand their problems first and recognize whether or not my solution can solve their problem. So I'm going into it with the solution, not wondering if the solution works for them. But that's a great way to fail fast, right? You might realize very quickly, oh, this is not something that they need at all. Okay, maybe I need to rework this, what the solution looks like, right? That same kind of idea of that Tony's triangle of, people, problem, product. One of those things may have to change. Sometimes the people are right and the problem is right, but your product is not. Or maybe your product and problem are right, but it's a completely different person that actually needs it. And you don't realize that until you talk to enough prospective customers or prospective market segments to realize all of these things are so fluid. That it's great when students fail fast because they learn to pivot quickly and are willing to roll with the punches. But sometimes people, like I said, they strike gold, and that's great. We love that for students that are able to achieve that kind of thing.
Over the past 45 minutes, we've discovered that Rice is a very incredible place. But this lab specifically, you let the students do things that most don't get to do until maybe their senior year, their junior year in college. Maybe they even have to be a PhD or a master's. But in this space, there's so many opportunities that students have that I think it's okay if they fail. It's okay if they strike gold. You could fall somewhere in the middle. What do you think is the best outcome for one of your students? So I'll be a little more specific, right? You're a first, a student who's on their first startup. Maybe that'll be their only one. Maybe they'll have 10 more after that because something, keeps happening. What do you think is the best thing that could happen to that very first startup that a student has? Should it succeed right away? Should it fail right away? Or it's really different for everyone?
Oh, I think it's one of those things where success looks so different for everyone. So there's a couple of conversations I tend to have with students that I think are really important to touch on here. I think are just valuable advice for anybody that wants to build a startup when they're young. For a lot of people, especially in the very hacker builder entrepreneurship world, the pinnacle or one of the pinnacles is can I get into a program like Y Combinator, for example, which is mega startup accelerator program, incredibly successful. A lot of those alumni companies are incredibly successful. We have students from Lilie that go to YC. I think we've had somebody in, a majority of the last 7 batches, which is awesome, right? That's a great success story for some students. Now, while that might look like success for some students, that may not necessarily be the right kind of success for another student. So a great example of this is, my students that are pre-med, pre-law, right? A lot of them think they want to go and fundraise and go to an accelerator. That's awesome. But are you ready to drop out of school? That's a really tough question. It really sucks the air out of the room when you have to ask it, because people don't realize that once you get funding or you're working on a startup in that way, you're no longer your own boss. You answer to your investors, you answer to the programs, and their expectation is you're working on this full time. So sometimes your academic career has to be pushed to the side or to be never continued if you're incredibly successful, right? And that's not for everybody. So what might look like a success for some is not necessarily success for others. I think broadly, what leads people to success in building their startup is, are you happy with the outcome? Are you happy going to an accelerator? Are you happy going and receiving funding? Are you happy building this thing and getting your legs under you until you graduate, right? Most importantly, are you happy being the CEO? My most frank and honest question I ask almost every student after the completion of a program. In Nucleate, I would do this in exit interviews. For Launchpad, I typically do it in my last meeting with those students is I ask them to reflect and think about, are you the right person to be the CEO? And you don't have to tell me right now, but I want you to sit with that question and think about it, because that's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of changes maybe to your academic journey that you may have not thought about yet. Do you want to be the person going and fundraising and talking to people and being at the front of the room? Some people aren't built for that, and that's okay. But for everyone, success will look different, whether it's deciding to be the guy or the girl in the front, whether it's being a part of the team, whether it's fundraising, whether it's going to an accelerator, whether it's just tabling it till you graduate, or maybe just never picking it up again. Success can look vastly different, and that's okay. And I think that's the most important part of the entrepreneurial journey, is that there's no one-size-fits-all ending for anybody. I think at the end of the day, as long as the student or the person is happy with the outcome, feels like they've learned something or they've gotten to a place that they want to be, that is the best possible outcome you could have.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I have like a couple last kind of easy questions
Please.
to end it off. So if a student were to walk in this week, Monday, let's say, today,
Sure.
They don't have a company, they don't have anything, they just have an idea. What is the first thing they should do before Friday? Like just with the idea. And this could go for a student at Rice or really for anyone, anywhere.
If you just have an idea, my recommendation is always find a thought partner. Whether it's a friend, a family member, if you want to bounce things off of ChatGPT, like talk about the idea with somebody so you have some semblance of where does this actually fit? Is this like something that I really want to work on, or does it feel even mildly important, right? Do some discovery first. Regardless of whether the idea is fleshed out or not, come into our office. That's the goal. We're here to have a conversation with you and maybe help guide you along those first steps. If you just have an idea, maybe Launchpad isn't exactly the right fit for you, but that's okay. You have until August when the application opens, right? But it gives you some time to think about what the company's going to be. Maybe it's just, hey, let's talk through the idea. Let's register you for one of our classes, like New Enterprises, which is very much a, kind of build a company idea out from start to finish. How do we put you in the right position to succeed is always the question I'm going to have in the back of my mind. So I encourage students, if they have an idea, they have something they want to bring to us, talk to somebody about it. Before you come talk to me, talk to somebody else. And then that way, when you come to me, you've got some feedback to work with and we can bounce off of that together. I'm here to be your thought partner too, but it's always great to have some other people in your ear first, just to get a good sense of, am I going in the right direction? Am I walking the right way? Right?
Is this a good idea or is this just a shower thought in the middle of the night? That
Hey, some of the best ideas are shower thoughts. It's just how it works.
Okay, well, last thing. I'm taking like a little bit of a poll here.
Yeah.
I've been asking people this. What AI do you use or do you not use AI?
Oh, I do use AI. I very much, for the last few years, have been a Perplexity guy. Really love it.
Interesting.
Perplexity is great. They now have a computer part of the application very similar to Claude and Claude Cowork. I used it a lot during my PhD, primarily when I needed to do like a very, very quick and dirty like search for some scientific topic, because Perplexity actually cites articles. Sometimes it hallucinates, but a good chunk of the time it gives you real things to work off of. You can dig into like PubMed and other like research source APIs to like pull down articles and it will link you to them. So when there was something that maybe I wasn't sure about or I wanted it to kind of like do the scraping for me, because sometimes that can take a lot of time, it was very helpful for that. I have now started recently using Claude just to give it a try. I've been kind of doing like a year of pro on different types of AIs. So the jury's still out on if I'm going to like Claude more. But I've been a Perplexity guy for the last few years, have really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Claude and Anthropic perform. So
where do you think AI fits into what your students should be doing, and where is it dangerous for them to be? Where should it be left out?
Yeah, I think. So this is going to sound somewhat counterintuitive to what I just said, as far as like AI being a good thought partner. It's great to kind of like get some ideas. Do not rely on it to give you pure answers on whether or not this is the right.
I was just going to say yes.
Yeah, it's always going to say yes. The other thing is I've had students and others come to me before getting all their information that they need about startups from these AI tools, and they will make a lot of mistakes. And so I would encourage, if you're thinking about working on a startup, you want to build one, don't rely on AI to give you the tools to set yourself up for success. Go talk to somebody that's been there before. Go talk to your entrepreneurship department on your campus. Or if you're out in the ecosystem, find a startup hub near you and go talk to their community manager or their biz dev manager or somebody on their staff that can give you a better sense of, hey, I'm trying to pursue this and I want to know how to get plugged in better. AI is not going to be able to help you there. What AI is great for is most certainly vibe coding and building out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, building out a quick and dirty jank MVP is what I'll call it, right? Like you can use things like Lovable and Replit to help build or encode your first website or app. Even if they are the jankiest, like not UI UX friendliest type of application or web page, build something. Try it, see what it can do for you. There are a lot of great things that AI tools can do to help accelerate either the product or your presence, which I think is very important. Having it be real, right? Have a web page that people can have a contact you form, right? They naturally find it. Have your LinkedIn presence up. Have your startup, whatever your website is, your .com, have it in your LinkedIn bio, right? Like there are things that AI can help you do very quickly that won't require you to go spend a ton of money on a designer or on a software developer to build. Use it to do a lot of the quick early hits just to see what happens. I think that that's where it's incredibly successful.
So I think the website thing is interesting, right? I'll go to a website for a new company,
Sure.
a nonprofit that just started, something my friend is working on, and like I can instantly tell that this was like a Wix template that they barely edited.
Yeah.
Like you click a button and you see like the default text is still there, right? Yep. But I'd way rather see someone who definitely used Claude Code to make their website, because you can tell. Until you edit the website, they all look the same, right?
Absolutely.
I would way prefer that over the Wix template that's not finished, right?
Yep.
Even if you didn't do it yourself exactly, you probably edited some text and made some minor adjustments, but that's almost better, right? It's an assistant. It's not. That's not something that people are like, oh. Yeah. He didn't build his website. He's definitely illegitimate. It's definitely not a good company. Like, that's not something people are saying, right? But when you start having broken links and things that don't work, well, then they're like, well, if I can't contact them, then that's it. That's where the road ends with my partnership with these people.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to, again, presence is really important. Maybe that's like the fourth part of Tony's triangle, right? Is like you have
the square
problem and product, but your presence is equally as important, right? It's how you get,
matches.
Yeah, right. It's how your presence is how you get people to your product, right? Like you need to have something out there. I'll give a little bit of a sneak preview to the high school program. One of the days we actually have Diana Massaro, who teaches our entrepreneurship communications class. She is a wizard at building presence, whether it's in person or online. She's excellent at it. And one of the things that we're going to have her do is help the students, if they don't already have a LinkedIn, make one.
Oh, yeah.
And actually get set up and established. And one of the first deliverables for everyone is going to be to build out a way to capture signal. That might be a website, right? That might be an email automation that you set up with Claude Code, right? But something that tells the world that you're there, that you exist, right, is a great thing. Whether Claude Code did it or you did it, it's that first pass that is really helpful, right? You want to capture early signal, and no matter what it looks like, it shows people you're legit and you're real, and you want to do the thing. So
LinkedIn, I think, is actually one of the best social media platforms.
Yeah.
I connect with so many people friends, teachers, people who I'm interested in becoming one day, right?
Absolutely.
Like people whose jobs you want to have or something similar. You and Kyle, right? Like people who I know or who I want to know. It's great, so if, in my opinion, when someone sees that a young person has a LinkedIn, especially if it's not empty, it has stuff in it, right? Whether that's just your school extracurriculars or you have 4 jobs in there, it really speaks a lot to who you are and that you're willing to put in the work and the effort to make yourself known.
Yeah, it's surface area, right? You're just putting your professional profile out into the world of like, who am I and what am I working on? I think it's a great way to get your professional presence out there in a very simple way. It's very easy to make a good LinkedIn. Well, maybe not easy, but it's doable, right? And it allows you to kind of start exploring those things, because even now, earlier and earlier, people are looking for internship opportunities or shadowing opportunities, or people are building their own companies or building things like this podcast out, right? You got to have somewhere for people to go. And I think the professional gold standard is LinkedIn. You don't see anybody doing job stuff on Facebook, right? So, which may be a little bit before your time.
Oh, don't worry, I'm on Facebook.
But it's a great tool. It's a great resource to get yourself out there. And again, the presence part is so important as you begin building your venture, right? It's not just about the opportunity that's there that surrounds the people, product, and problem. It's also about the things that go around it to make it feel real or look real, right? that's kind of how you establish yourself, right? Is like committing to the bit and doing it for real. So
Well, Tony, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been great talking to you about rice and all of the amazing things that go on here.
absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we can make this happen.
Enjoyed the show? Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and iHeartRadio so you never miss an episode by searching The Pitch Room. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Pitch Room Podcast for clips and behind the scenes. The room is always open.